Hello, this is Professor Jack. Yeah, this is Professor Jack, and I'm smiling at you. Okay, this is the third chapter on socialization. It's a great chapter. I happen to love this chapter because it's part one of about three series. We have the socialization chapter, chapter 3. Then we have the social structure chapter, and we have the group chapter following those two chapters. It's one main theme, one main discussion. It's on identity and the characteristics of a group all together with socialization. Is fantastic. It's quite a beautiful presentation, with all three chapters there. And one feeds after the other, not feeds after the other, but one is conducive to the other. Yeah, without one you cannot have the other two. Okay, so the first question I have: what is socialization? Well, I have a definition for socialization. Is the lifelong process of social interaction. It's it derives from a different textbook perhaps, but it's very much line with Diana Kendall's definition and quite a couple of the other authors that I read about a lot. Pretty much the same idea, right? It is gathered throughout the stages of development, of human development, and is a process of social interaction. In the stages, of course. We have stages of development, and of course we cannot ignore the ages of socialization or / institutions, family and education being the most influential, but we also have peers, we have religion, we have television, which is very influential in terms of what it does to us, what we are exposed to, and how we develop this self-identity through this socialization process, whether it's TV, friends, family members, mom and dad, siblings, etc., church members. The church is very powerful and influential, not as before anymore, because as we go in society, we then have less and less religious people. It is just a matter of time where religion continues to fade down, and people are less religious and they're more liberal. If we go back to the culture chapter, we'll go ahead and continue to discuss how the pop culture, how the current culture actually, questions the traditions and values of the previous generation, or the previous, culture, the previous generation. So with that goes the change of culture, the change of values, and religion fading down. That's just the analysis that I'm making. So it's not as influential as before. It is definitely very powerful, very influential, depending on the person and the family, right? And in continuing asking you why socialization, or what is socialization more, why is socialization important? It is important because through these stages of development and the agents of socialization, we acquire a self-identity or a social identity, right? It's just one more layer of identity that we have. So it starts with family. I actually have a slide, the slide with the egg, with the nest, and then of course the education, school being the second most influential next to it. So what happens here is that you have the nest, which is family, which is where you start, and family gives you status, gives you the roles, gives you an identity that like nothing else, right? Family is this institution that will go ahead and follow you for the rest of your life, because we deals now with chapter 5 on groups. And then we also have a family chapter later, right? In 13 or so more chapters to go, 12 more chapters to go. But in this case, the family is a group, the most important group. We'll discuss groups in chapter 5, but for now we'll go ahead and say that it's an important group, and this group, gives you status, gives you a role, gives you an identity, right? And so now at age 5 or 6, we're presented with school, a strange place to go, right? But here we'll go ahead and find peers, and we'll go ahead and, for the first time in life, we'll be institutionalized by one of the first forms of government institutionalization in the life of the child, right? Because now we go to school, is the introduction to government, and we have status, we have norms, we have structure, we have now even social class inside this element, right? We also have a system of hierarchy, right? And guess what? The child automatically knows his space. He knows his place in society. How does that happen? The child goes and he now understands, or she now understands, that he or she's not unique anymore. There are more like him with first and last name, right? And actually, he now understands that he's not like the best, the center of the universe, but that other children have characteristics that perhaps are greater than his or hers, and he finds himself incredible. and labels now stick to that, right? So like, yeah, I mean, again, institutionalization, right? Nobody said it was great. That nobody said that institutionalization was great, but it's a must. Our children and people go through that, right? Family is a restraint mechanism, of behavior, and religion was another, or still continues to be another restraint of behavior. But as religion fades down, family is left alone, because religion and family represent the moral code, versus the other agents of socialization represent the political code. So religion, it's important, definitely, to a lot of people, and it's definitely a restraint when it comes to behavior, morale, value, etc., love. Okay, but now that family is farthering away from religion, or that religion is fading down, let's just say it like that, other institutions come into place that are influential as well, like education, which is the first introduction to government and politics and television and so on, computer technology. Okay, so all these institutions come into place, and they do alter and affect behavior. So now with education, children find their way, find their place, find their identity furthermore. So you hit at the stage of your life when you're a teenager, I don't know, something after 13, not something after 13, but and before 18 or so, and then you are very influenced by school, your peers inside school. So there you go. It's very influential, definitely, right? And so we'll talk about religion some other chapter, because I have a fantastic and very, very nice analysis when it comes to family, religion, and marriage. Later in the family chapters, we have the sex and gender chapter. We have the family chapters as well. So identity in terms of gender roles. Are gender roles also product of the socialization process? Well, I have this stages of human development slide, and you see how each institution has an influence overall on the child. And so when it comes to gender roles, family, then school, television, and so on, they do portray it this influence on what the teenager, the child, feels or thinks masculinity is and femininity is. It's introduced early in the family, infancy, and then now school actually still portrays this and continues to empower this idea to differentiate between masculinity and femininity. And yeah, children and then teenagers and adults acquire a self-identity that is more of a gender identity, right? So gender roles are definitely very influential, and is more thanks to the exposure of environments more than the nature of it, right? Agents of socialization throughout human development. Well, you have pretty much all of these, like I said already, with the human development slide. You have all these stages where the child develops more and more of his sense of self, and some stages are more, they're more easier to influence by the institutions of family, education, peers, which are generally the most influential, than religion as well. Family would always be there, that's for sure. So about self, and how the child acquires self, a sense of self, not just a sense of self, an identity sense of self. Identity altogether. We have two theorists. The first one is Charles Cooley, and Cooley talks about the looking glass self, that other people, persons we meet outside and inside, our life, inside meaning family and close friends, outside meaning school and the environment, they become like a reflection of who we are. Why? Because we do take them in consideration. You always hear people, children with attitude say, well, I don't care what other people think about me. Well, they actually do, maybe not the overall the population, but definitely they have a subculture, maybe a group of people who they actually do act for. They're social actors, and they have to go ahead and fit into some environment, right? So we first imagine how our behavior, personality will appear to other people. We then imagine how other people judge the appearance and personalities that we present to them, and then we finally, at the third stage, we develop a self-identity. If we think the evaluation of other people is favorable, our self-identity is enhanced. If we think the evaluation is not good, then our self-identity or self-concept diminishes, right? So it's all about what other people think in reality, right? Even though people say no, it's not true, it is true. It is definitely true. We have another theorist by the name of George Matt, and his role-taking theory, the process by which a person mentally assumes the role of another person in order to understand the world from his or her point of view. And so what we have is that the generalized other would be society at large, and then we have the significant other, close family members. So in the significant other stage, which is the going back to the nest and education, the slide that I developed for you. Remember a couple of slides ago, and we have three stages of infancy, three stages of infant development. So this guy gives more emphasis like in infancy, and in infancy, what happens is that you have the preparatory stage from 0 to 3 years of age. 0 to 3 years of age are the most important years in an infant's life and person's life overall. And so at this stage, children imitate adults' behavior. Just mimic gestures. Many times these adults come on TV. Many times they're just close family members that come and visit, and they imitate a lot, right? The play stage, which is the second stage, is with 3 to 5 years of age. During this time, they master language most, right? And they play the role of close family members. Now, like the role in terms of status. Now we're talking about status. The status of mom, the status of dad. They would continue to imitate, but now they adopt roles. They adopt statuses, and they bring roles to it. The game stage, which is the last stage of infancy, is 5 years of age and after. And of course, it goes back to the introduction of government, of society, via school. Rules, regulations, hierarchy. The child understands social position and group hierarchy. I mean, it's incredible. The children do not have to be trained for this. They automatically, like in the snapping a finger, they understand where they fit automatically. And they now see labels. They now see that they're not unique. They're not the center of the universe anymore, like when they were at home. Now they have to go ahead and follow orders, and it's just the way it is. It's real society out there, right? It's institutionalization, like I was saying earlier. Then we have another guy by the name of Erik Erikson, and the reason why we wouldn't study Erik Erikson, and he's more, I think he was a psychologist, right? He was a psychologist, but one major contribution for us sociologists is that Erikson's study of human development has shown that socialization continues throughout the person's life, so it doesn't stop in childhood. It continues with all these institutions and with the stages of development that Erikson presents. It's really socialization if you think about it, right? It's socialization in the sense that the child or the person now is continuing to find more about himself, right? So it's important to go ahead and recognize Erikson and also Freud. Let me see hands. How many of you guys like Freud? Well, he's the father of psychoanalysis, right? And he's one of the fathers of psychology, I bet. With his id, ego, and superego. What it means to sociologists, why he is very important to us, is because he suggests that society and the individual are enemies due to the restrictive norms and values set by society. So he's trying to say that people have a problem abiding by the laws and the norms of the social structure of society. And it's an important realization that a psychologist is making right here. And so we take that highly in consideration, especially when you have children now, adults actually, who cannot abide by the norms. I mean, for example, I used to work with children. I used to teach 5th grade as a school teacher, elementary school teacher. And many times, children, they just cannot abide by the regulations. They're very smart. They're actually problem solvers, but they easily manipulate the environment. They know the hierarchy of people. They know what buttons to push and what not, and they continue to socialize. And with this understanding of what the world is at age 10 and 11, they know very well how the world, the mechanisms of the world. And now adults more so, right? They're not ignorant. They're way smarter than a 5th grader. Especially when you talk about a 15 and 16-year-old, or sometimes a 25-year-old, and they have no norms, have absolutely no restrictions. They're lawless, they're ruthless, and they're difficult to treat. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, but I definitely deal with a lot of kids, a lot of people that age, with those characteristics where they just cannot abide by the law or by the rules in operation. If it's a classroom, or whatever. Okay, I mean, I do social work. Again, I used to do social work, and I used to work with kids in foster care, and they were like very difficult to control. Many of them hard to deal with. You had to go ahead and referral after referral. But I'm not here to talk about psychology and social work. What I'm here to say is that many times children or the person finds a conflict in abiding by the societal norms, and this is why Sigmund Freud makes a lot of sense. Anyways, this was chapter 3. Chapter 4 is coming. Thank you very much for listening to me. Bye bye.